Happy Tuesday! My favorite day of the week. If you are an avid follower, you know that every Tuesday, yo estoy aquí presente and excited, as per always. I do what I do because it's personal and I love it. And Tuesdays happen to be my favorite day now. So today is an exciting show. I've been kind of like hyping it up for a while now, and I do that with all of my shows. But it's always more exciting for me when the topics resonate so closely. So before we get into who we have today, I know that you've probably seen a million of my posts and I've said it 1,000 times. Let's remind ourselves what happened the last time we were here. The last time we were on screen, we were speaking with Ashley Cariño, who is an amazing young woman who's doing phenomenal things in Philadelphia. She is someone who suffered through postpartum psychosis, which is something that we don't often talk about, and she dealt with on a personal level. Ashley wrote a book about this experience. She writes articles every month about this experience, and she is a true forging, fighting Latina who is dealing with this. So we highlighted her because let's also remember, it is Women's History Month, and what I've been doing for the past few days is highlighting not only phenomenal Latinas, but all women who are just doing amazing things. Most times during Women's History Month, we speak about women from our past, people who have done phenomenal and great things in our past. But like I said in our last show, we have mujeres que están aquí, presente, in today's day doing phenomenal things. And that is why myself and my organization decided this month we will make sure that we dedicate ourselves to highlighting, celebrating, and just being present with all of the women doing phenomenal things. So today, we usually have Amanda Peguero, our licensed professional counselor, as a guest. But today we have her as my co-host. I thought that it would be something that was good for her to come onto the show today and host with something that she knows so much about. Amanda has dealt with so many children, adults, women, men, everyone who have dealt with different forms of trauma. She is a specialist. She specializes in trauma. And today's topic is just something that's super excited and close to her. So she is going to help me bring on our guests because we're super excited. If you didn't look it up, you need to look it up because listen, este libro, I finished it last night and I was blown away. Not only does it resonate with me personally and my own story, but besides her being a phenomenal actress and just someone who's out there doing it for us Latinos, 2 snaps for that. This book is phenomenal, y'all. Amazon. You need to go and find it, Embracing Me. So before we bring on April Hernandez Castillo, we're going to bring on Amanda Peguero, our Fierra Dominicana, who knows what she's doing, y'all. Hey, boo.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
I'm super hyper, and you're always like, damn, this girl's so loud.
No. I always try to match your energy. You're kind of telling me I'm not matching your energy. Wait, let's do this over.
You looked a little scared when you came on. Otra vez. Revisa.
Okay, hold on. Dímelo, mi gente. Is that better?
There you go. That's the Dominicana in me. I feel it now. What's up, babe? You're always a guest, but I thought that today would be awesome for you to share in this moment because her book is bomb, and she speaks about intimate partner violence, which is something that you have a lot of background on with a lot of your patients.
Yes, I'm really excited about today. I'm sad that I didn't get the book before today, but I'm really excited to talk anyways. And then I'll probably get it after this, and then I could probably just text, and you and I can have our own little book club conversation.
For real, it's fly. So listen, I sat with the book yesterday, and you know that after all of our shows, whenever you're on, I always end up sending you people like this person needs help, that person needs help. So before we even get into the book, you stated it yourself. There's something we always don't say. If people need help and they want to reach out to you, what are the steps that they need to do? What would you do during that process? Because we have so many people who ask once you get off the show.
So one thing I want everyone to know is that there is a million therapists out there. There are a lot of Latinx therapists out there. So for our Latin community, like, don't be afraid because of the stigma that our families or friends or culture has put on us. Give it a try. It's really like talking to a girlfriend, but without the bias or without the kind of judgment that we sometimes think they might have. So it's really fun. I say fun because at the end of the day, you end up having a really good relationship with that person and you end up looking forward to going to see them. If you look forward to seeing me once a month, think about how you look forward to seeing your therapist. That's how I'm going to equate it. But one of the things I want people to know is that if you have insurance, whether it is through, welfare, CHIP, employment, self-employed, whatever, if you have insurance, take out your insurance card. On the back of your insurance card, there will be a line that says like medical services, mental health or behavioral services. Call that 800 number. You don't have to know what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Let the people on the other side, the hotline people, will guide you and lead you through what you are looking for. However, some of you are like, I don't know. I really like want to talk to you first. You know, a lot of people have reached out to Chrissy and she's referred them to me, and we've had our conversation one-on-one, and I don't have a problem guiding people. I will say I do take clients, but I don't take insurance. So that's something that I've had to tell folks, unfortunately. So it's out of pocket. But if you have an insurance, I'm going to guide you that way, because I'm all about being smart with your money, and we have to be smart with our money because everyone want to save their coins and be living a good life. So save your coins and use your insurance and call the back of that number and let someone guide you through what you want. The only thing you need to know is, do I want trauma services? Do I want specific services for DV? Do I want specific services for a divorce? Do I want services for my children? Do I want someone who does family services? That's really all you need to know, and then they'll guide you through it. So pull out your insurance card, look at the back, and there's a number that you can call. Worst case scenario, I'm here to support in any which way that I can.
Absolutely. So before we get into our guests, let me remind folks who watch every week, and as I often do, if you are in a situation where you feel as though someone you love, someone who is around you, a friend, a relative, or you yourself feel as though you're dealing with some form of domestic violence, you can also reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is scrolling across the bottom of our screen at 1-800-799-7233. As per always, you can reach out to myself and those involved in my organization at loveshouldnothurt.com or any of our social media platforms. So before we bring her on and we show you this amazing Latina, let's show a small clip, because listen, my girl wrote a book, but if you see her face, you know exactly who she is. I am an avid follower of Law and Order SVU. So I already know who she was, because she was fly on there too. But she's been on ER, and she was Eva in Freedom Writer. So let's see a clip really quickly before we bring her on.
Knowing what hit him. You don't know nothing. You don't know the pain we feel. You don't know what we gotta do. You got no respect for how we living. You got us in here teaching us this grammar shit, and then we gotta go out there again. And what are you telling me about that, huh? What are you doing in here that makes a goddamn difference to my life?
Hey, that movie was awesome. I watched it a few times.
Yeah, it was. It was really
So
good.
listen, let's show a nice picture with April before people show her with her book. Let's see what she looks like, giving people, ooh, look at that. See the red lipstick, labio y todo. You know she's a
Yes.
fiery Latina. Amanda, let's welcome her on today.
So, love shouldn't hurt audience. Let's give Miss April Hernandez Castillo a warm, cuddly welcome to our show, because she is going to give us all of her today. So come on, people, let's welcome her. Welcome, April.
Woo, welcome. Hi.
Hello. How are you, ladies?
Amazing. How are you tonight?
I am fantastic. Thank you. This
Thank
is
you so
exciting.
much for being here. I know that it's your daughter's birthday. Disculpa. I'm so sorry we're taking you from that.
No, listen, I had a major just fog in my brain of like, yeah, sure, the 23rd. And I'm like, that's my daughter's birthday.
Bendito.
But you know what? I've been working on the prodigal son. And so it's just, and then speaking and auditioning all in between. So it's okay, because Saturday we're going to celebrate here. It's going to be bigger. But right now we are here to have some girl chat. So let's talk.
We are. So
it speaks volumes, though, that you're here. It speaks to how you believe about this topic. So thank you.
Of course, absolutely.
So you probably received your email yesterday and was like, okay, she got a lot of questions.
I love that you were prepared. I love that you had specific questions because that allows the conversation to flow more, which I always appreciate. So thank you for that.
Yes, and let me tell you, it hit home so closely.
I mean, hit me up on Instagram today. She was like, girl.
I felt like I was reading my own story. I was like, oh my God, same thing.
Right.
It was crazy. So Amanda didn't read the book, but I was telling her like different just background on it. Like I stated, she is a therapist and we talk about this subject so much. So I thought it was perfect because she comes on once a month for her to come and share the screen with us. Amanda, give her the first question because that was your question. So let's start off with that.
So one of my questions was like, what was the inspiration or the motivation for you to write the book?
That's a great question. What motivated me? So I began writing the book at the height of the pandemic of last year. I wrote my first book many years ago, and this time last year, my speaking, my acting, everything was put on hold. And my publisher and I were originally going to just re-edit the first book and add a chapter here. And as we kept going through it, we realized that there were so many parts of my life that were not in the book, in the first book. And he asked me, he said, well, why did you leave those things out? And I said, I don't know. I just didn't feel ready to share. Obviously, I share everything in this book.
Yeah.
And then where the title came from really was inspired by getting to a place of, there I go, of fully embracing everything about myself up until this point as a woman, and not being afraid or ashamed or held back from my past. And it felt like, wow, embracing is such a beautiful moment. When you think of a child and a parent, when a child and you're hugging someone, and that's what I felt like. I felt like I was hugging my shadow. I was hugging all my pain. And then I was saying, this is what I want people to walk away with. So that was some of the inspiration. And then, just being crazy enough to write a memoir during the pandemic. That's just how I roll. Okay. That's how my brain is wired. And saying, how can I create in chaos? Yeah. Because it felt so chaotic, because it was very chaotic last year.
Yeah, look, one of our viewers says it's such an amazing book. So it looks like people are watching. People are watching.
Thank you.
It also sounds like you found something that you had control over in a time that we had no control.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And I own 100% of my book, which my publisher was, he's Latino. He's a phenomenal speaker, national speaker. And he said, I'm doing this, but I want you to own it. I think as people of color, as women, owning our stories, right? Creating something that no one else can create other than myself and my team, because I didn't do it alone. Right. But no one can take my story away, because I wrote it. And listen, when I was growing up, I never saw anyone who looked like me, who spoke like me, write a book. And I think now more and more we're seeing so many self-publishers, and it's just an exciting time.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm telling you, what movie that I watched that J-Lo was in, and she said, I got goosies. She says it in a lot of them. That's exactly what I felt like last night. Like, just going through it. I mean, I can see your relationship with Q, and I can see that in my own friendships and the people that I grew up with. And unfortunately, even like losing friendships that you've known forever. And then like, I recently went through this. And then I'm telling you, going through the book, I felt like I was walking with you. I was like, wow. Oh my God. I think the only difference was the mother relationship, because my mother and I have always had a really good relationship. But every other part of your book, I mean, from how you met, your abuser, from what happened after, I was like, that's me, that's my life. So it was crazy. So let's keep on, because I don't want to take all of your time. So your relationship with your mom was tough, right? It wasn't what any mother-daughter relationship we expect to be. It was kind of rough through the edges, and you grow, but it seems like it represented another form of abuse way early on. Do you think that any of the like feelings or abuse that you feel that you got from your mother kind of played a part in like how you saw yourself and your own perception, and why that abuse kind of led up to that relationship that you accepted? You get what I mean? I kind of jumbled that a little bit.
No, you said it perfectly. So when I started doing work on myself, and I started trying to understand where this where could this have happened? Who could have showed this to me? Obviously, I didn't grow up in that type of home in the sense of my father.
Right.
But my mom was, but I didn't have the language to identify it. But when I started doing the research, both of my parents grew up in abusive homes. Right. So when I understood the generational curses that do follow us, to me, it was like, okay, I understand now where it comes from. I was able to place it and saying this was behavior, this is things that were passed down. So once I was able to leave then I'm in my head like, oh, this is done. Like I'm breaking this. I'm breaking this curse. I am breaking whatever was following me. And it was easy to understand how I fell into that kind of situation. But then as I became a woman and I realized the relationship between my mother and I, the dynamics, it was very emotional and verbally abusive. And it was something that it's hard, right? Because it's your mother. And I loved her. Like I love my mom. I think she gave me so much, but she was just tortured herself. And she never had the ability to do the work, right? Because they don't come from this generation where we're all about doing the work and expressing ourselves and speaking about our emotions. They come from that time of, speak no evil, hear no evil, see no evil.
Yes.
And that's where I had to make amends with that. And so when I wrote about her, it wasn't, I didn't want it to come from a place of like, oh, I'm angry at what you did. It was more of, I understand you.
Right.
And I wish that you would have been given the chance to understand yourself, meaning my mom.
Yeah.
And so the more and more I share about my story of my mother and I, so many women have been like, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
I can't even explain to you what it feels like for someone to say all the things that, I've always wanted to say, but we can't, because as Latinas, we're supposed to put our mothers on like this high pedestal.
Yeah.
We never say anything. But yeah, so that's what that was.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you said a couple times just now, like, you had to go through your process. So a lot of times our viewers see women who are now on the other side, like you and Christina, and for them, it's like, that's good. And I'm happy for them, but how do I get there? So can you talk a little bit about like, what was your process? Not just like what you said in the book, but like for yourself to get to a place to even do your research. A lot of us don't think about, let me see where my family comes from and what is the generational curse. I love that you said that I'm now tagging along, and do I want to keep it going with my family, or do I want to make a break? And it sounds like you made a break. So can you share a little bit about what your work or your process was for yourself?
My process didn't start until like 10 years after. So when I left my relationship that was abusive, the one thing I did was, I did two things. I made a choice to leave and I made a choice to live. And I thought to myself, oh, you didn't like kill me? Watch. So the word victim didn't even exist in my mindset.
Right.
I just thought, watch me. So I'm going to use this as ammunition. Once again, at that time that I'm talking about, there was no help. There were no organizations. There was the yellow pages. That's all I had. And so it was just me saying, watch me. Once I began speaking about my experience publicly, then I started saying, okay, wow, I need a lot of healing. I need to, number one, make amends with myself and forgive myself. And really, what does that look like? That means like either writing it down or just saying like, wow, prayer, faith. If for me, for my journey, it was prayer, it was my faith. I didn't start seeing a therapist until maybe a couple of years after to deal with more of my mother issues. But once again, being surrounded by therapists, I have an amazing group of people who are in that work field. I'm also associated with so many organizations that provided that mental health aspect. So having the support and number one, talking about it. So I've dealt with all my trauma sort of publicly. Most people don't. They do it very privately. Someone pointed it out today. They were like, you've done it all. You've put it out in a book. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I didn't really see it like that. I was just telling a story. So those are some of the ways that I dealt with it. And really, I have to give credit to my husband.
Yeah.
We've been together for 20 years, but his love, his support, his patience and his empathy for me, and me like allowing me to find my way really helped me as well.
Yeah. I think that was the part of the book that actually touched me when I read it last night. After you left that relationship and you moved on, you were like, I'm not going to deal with anyone.
Right.
And then when you met him, I think you said at one point, I'm trying to remember the part, but he came to you and you thought maybe that he was going to get aggressive, but he wasn't. And you kind of like, the way us Latinos are, like, he's going to hit me, it's going to happen. Like, I'm going to deal with this. And he was like, I'm not that person. Like, it's not going to happen. And he pretty much told you,
right,
he knows his worth. He loves you, but he loves himself more. And that was crazy for me because I'm like, that's what women normally say. Like, I love you, but I love me more. But your husband, Jose, said that, like, listen, I love you, but I love me. Like, if this is how you're going to act.
Correct. It was in that moment where I realized, oh, I think I have some trauma, but I didn't know that word.
Yeah.
I just felt like, oh, I got some mess. I have some stuff that I haven't dealt with, and I cannot carry this into my next relationship because this is it's unhealthy. And he loved me, but he really put it down. We were arguing, and he it was heated, and he's like 5'11", I'm 5'1", and when you suffer trauma, your body reacts. And so I felt it in my body, and I was like, oh, hell no. I was ready. I was like, oh, get the Vaseline. Once it was just like, I would never allow it to happen again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But when I was really losing it, he just was like, I'm not that person. And I can't allow you to like continue to treat me that way. I know you're hurt, but I have my standards as well. And I was like blown away. And that's when I really felt like, oh my gosh, wow, I have issues.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's why I say that so many parts of this book, Amanda, you don't have to read it. I mean, buy it. I got it. I'm gonna take it to your house.
No. We gotta support. We gotta support our people.
No, that's
we gotta
true.
put them coins in her bank account.
I'm trying to get you to read it quick. This book was amazing.
All right, I borrow it, but I'll still read it and pass it forward. How about that?
Because I felt like I lived everything you said. Like, I have dealt with relationships after my abuse, and I have built that same defense mechanism. And I've been there where they're like, well, I'm not going to touch you. Like, why are you tripping? And I'm like, no, I've been here. And that's what he did to me. And then I come off looking crazy because I'm ready to like pop you because I think that's what you're going to do to me. Correct. So I was reading that and I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like everything, it just hit home. For everybody that's watching, compra el libro, Amazon, vete.
Which is what most people don't really discuss, the PTSD, the post traumatic that you feel, the post trauma that you experience. And mine was being very aggressive. I'm already I have an aggressive personality. Right. I own it. I'm assertive. I'm aggressive. I have, I always tell my husband, I feel like I have more of a masculine kind of energy. I've always been that way. So that's great. So that makes sense to me. But it was unhealthy aggression. It was, no one is going to hurt me ever again. Absolutely. And that is unhealthy because how do you love? How do you trust again? And I think so many women, we get hurt. And we make this decision in our minds, like no one's ever going to do that again. Yeah. And we don't realize that although we think we are protecting ourselves, it also hinders our process and growth. Because you can only last but so long. You can only last like that for so long in a relationship or with anyone, right? If you're in a workspace and someone talks down to you, automatically, you assume that they want to take advantage of you. And that's not always the case.
Yeah, definitely.
So two things. I'm sorry, I'm not following your questions, Chrissy.
No, it's okay.
So two things that you just said. First of all, I love the positive thinking. The watch me. Like when you said to yourself, like, watch me, you didn't kill me, but watch me. Loved it because we talk about this every month on the show that like, it's important that we take all those negative messages that have been drilled into our mind and create something positive that we tell ourselves that we believe. And you sounded like you really believe that. Like, okay, I lived this situation. Now I need to make my life worth it. And you did. And you've been living your life to your best ability. And then the second thing is that the other thing we talk about is, how do you know, what are the red flags for like a new partner or a relationship on like, maybe this isn't a good relationship for me. And I'm going to say kudos to your husband, because he stood his ground, but you were open to hearing that as well. You didn't automatically be like, what's wrong with him? Like, why he's not trying to attack me, because it was your norm before to get the verbal or the, or the physical attacks. And this person is saying like, I love myself enough to not put myself and you in a situation that's hurtful. We talked about it I think last month, we said that, where it's like, it takes us by surprise when you're like up here and the person you're in the, dialogue with is like real calm, and it really takes, you have to be open for it, because if not, you might have poked him a little more and called, and pushed, and the situation could have gotten worse, or he would have stood his ground, which it sounds like he would have stood his ground and like went with it.
Right. 100%. I don't believe in, my mom, as hard as she was, I remember she would always tell me like, listen, don't try to punk out a guy. Like, you're not going to win. If you disrespect a guy, don't ever put your hands on a man, because that just does something to them, as you don't want them to do that to you. And yeah, it was that moment for me where I thought, wow, because I guess, you know what it was? It was his delivery. He was so loving. Right? Because he could have been the other way, like, oh, don't, he could have met my violence or my aggression with his aggression. But I truly believe, because his approach, because his tone, and I really think that he saw a diamond in the rough. I think he was like, man, I know that there's someone who's loving. I know that there's someone whom I think I can grow with. I just have to let her know, like, I'm not the one. Yeah. I'm not the one. And I would hate for us to break up. I mean, we've been together for 20 years, and believe me, we've had colorful arguments.
I like that.
They have been colorful. But I never felt endangered. I never felt, because when people talk about like, oh, what happens when you have an argument with your husband? I go, right, but my husband empowers me every day. Yes. I don't ever feel unsafe in his presence. I just feel like we're 20 years.
Yeah.
You can fight. And you're going to say things that aren't always best. But the number one thing is we always apologize eventually. And we just keep respect and honor in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we are almost at our 30-minute mark. So we have heard from April all of the positivity and what's come after all of the craziness. So she finally found her Prince Charming, as she said in the book. I'm telling you, this book, people, I'm hyper. So first thing to know, if you look in the comment section, people, and you want to find the book, we've already put the link. So click on that link, go to Amazon and buy it, because it's amazing. As we do every time at our 30 mark, I want to remind folks why we are here. If you feel as though you are in any form of danger, the number is crawling across the bottom of the screen, 1-800-799-7233. So April, we're going into the 30-minute mark. Let's talk about Mike. So when you met Mike, as any man, he came off as, damn, he's fine. I want to date him. Before the violence began, and you guys, it looks like you guys were together constantly, and your parents were telling you, este hombre no es pa' ti. I got the same thing all the time. Were there any red flags before the abuse happened?
I was a teenager, so I feel... And he was my first boyfriend. So I was just, in awe of just like having a boyfriend. And he looked very different from any other guy I've ever liked. And he was a little older than me. And I didn't see it. I really did not. It wasn't until I was hit in the face for the first time. And even at that, I thought, well, damn, where did this come from? And then when you're in it, you don't really know you're in it.
Right.
When you're in an abusive relationship, you don't know that you're in it, because number one, you hope and pray that it doesn't happen again.
Right.
And so what happens is if a time passes by and it hasn't happened, you just assume
It's over.
that was a one-time thing.
Yeah.
So why am I going to break up with him? Because, every other time I'm with him, it's beautiful. But then it started getting continuous. And then it was, okay, now this is feeling dangerous. Now I'm isolating. Now I'm lying a lot. Now I'm terrified of him.
Yeah.
This is no longer love. This is no longer passion. This is a young girl who was in a situation and she was too ashamed to say anything to anyone. And, I was going to Catholic school, so I wasn't even supposed to have, SES. I was going to go straight to hell. So, and there were no, there were no motivational speakers. There were no workshops about healthy and unhealthy relationships. It was just, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
And he was psychotic. He was crazy. He was dangerous. Yeah. He was dangerous. And my father is a crazy Puerto Rican man. And I sort of instinctively knew, without really understanding the capacity of, if my father reacts to him, my father will go to jail.
Yeah.
And he won't.
Yes.
And I can't live with that kind of situation. Because, my father is my hero. How could I have my hero in jail? Because unfortunately, the system does not work on our favor. It just does not. And that's how it was with Mike.
See, first of all, that statement right there, like I said, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror. A lot of the time that I was in the abuse, people even ask me now, like, why didn't you say something? How didn't we know? And that was always my response. Like, he always threatened to hurt. I don't know if Mike did for you, but my abuser always threatened to hurt my family. And I know how my dad is. And my dad will constantly say, I'll go to jail for my kids. Same thing. Huge, big Puerto Rican guy. And he's like, I'll just go to jail for my kids. I don't care. And I'm like, how am I going to tell him? They end up in something and that's it for my dad. And then I'll blame myself for it. So I kind of didn't. I was looking at your book, of course, and I was, you see the highlight? I was highlighting everything.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it.
I'm telling you. I always we did a documentary about 2 years ago when I started my organization. And in the documentary, I say that the first time he hit me, I laid on the floor and I said, did this just really happen? And I couldn't believe it. And you said that it happened to you outside of the door of your apartment. Your parents were inside. You didn't want them to hear you. And you wrote, I highlighted, you wrote, I stood there staring into his eyes. I didn't react. I couldn't. I didn't even breathe. There was no way he just hit me, I thought. I'm like, that's me. We have those moments that we're like, you said at the beginning of the book, like when you met him, he was good. He was good looking. Your times together were amazing. And then that moment that they hit you, it's like, did that shit just really happen?
Right.
And then you had to go back into the apartment and act like nothing happened.
And I think we have done an injustice in assuming that when you are attacked, especially if you've grown up in an urban community, that your instinct is to automatically fight back.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Because what happens is when you're when that moment hits, three things happen. You either fight, oh my gosh, fight. Or freeze. And I froze.
Yep.
I couldn't even fight back. And usually I would have, because that was my nature. I grew up in the Bronx in one of the toughest times of New York City during the crack epidemic era. I've fought guys before. I've fought girls before. So for me, it made sense in my mind. But then when it happened, it just was complete shock. So I froze. And that's what I tell people all the time. You either like you're fighting back, you're flighting, you're leaving it, or you're frozen. And when you're frozen, it's like the power is just taken from you.
Yeah.
That's the moment that you are silenced. That's the moment where you are just completely, the power is just sucked out of you like that. And you just hope and pray, like, I hope that never happened again. And unfortunately it did for the next almost 4 years of my life as a teenager.
So therapists say that there's a fourth, just so you know, and the audience knows I curse, so I apologize, April, if I offend, but the fourth is fuck, right? And it's because it's a sense of like, that didn't effing just happen. So It's not that just freezing, is that, like you said, your instinct is that you're gonna fight, but in reality, your body isn't frozen. Your body is just like, no, I'm gonna hit him back. No, I shouldn't hit him back. Like, oh my god, my parents are on the other side. Like, so it's that fuck. What do I do?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting because our bodies don't do what we think they should do because it is an out of body experience. Like I always hear people say it's an out of body and mind experience because if this is a person who loves me and has been kind and sweet, and yeah, we've had I'm going to steal some of your lines, colorful conversations, still has never been an opportunity. It should never be an opportunity for them to put their hands on me, and they do.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. You're in panic mode. You're trying to figure out, number one, your brain is trying to process what just happened. That's number one, right? You feel this thing and number one, okay, my brain's trying to process. Now my body is having a reaction and it goes like just numb. You don't feel anything. You just feel fear. And then you're just like, well, do I react? Do I not react? God only knows if I did react, could he have, I don't know what could have happened at that moment. And whenever I share that specific moment, especially in schools, when I'm speaking to teenagers, usually the majority of the time they laugh. And I think it's because they're so nervous and they're not expecting that.
Yeah.
And then you hear the girls be like, oh, if that was me, I would do this. And I just go, it's interesting because that's exactly how I thought.
Right. You also say, because here I go with my highlight, there was another moment when you guys were in the car and he was driving so fast, you thought, all right, I'm going to die. Like this man is driving, swerving and crazy. So you reacted by acting loving to change the situation. You said, I needed to survive the moment. I learned later on through my work with abuse survivors that it's not that they don't want to retaliate, but sometimes it's just about surviving and making it through another day. And that's what so many of us do. I can remember so many times when he would come in and he would have me choked up and I would just hold his hands and say, but babe, I love you. You're amazing. And he'd be angry. And I'm like, no, we don't have to fight. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And people afterwards who knew were like, you're sangana. Like, why would you say that to him? But in that moment, I'm just trying to live. Like, I don't know if this man's going to choke me to death.
We were going very fast on the West Side Highway and he was in a really bad mental state. And he was like, I will crash this car. And I thought, I really don't want to die this way.
Yeah.
So if I react to him once again, if I'm meeting his aggression, that is not going to change the situation. Because what he did want was for me to plea. He did want me to beg. And I had to play the role.
Yeah.
Why? Because I had to survive this. I had to say, just go with it. Just don't fight it. And just, because the other option was, okay, I'll fight him and then none of us will survive.
Yeah.
It's you don't know how you're going to react until you are in that situation.
Yeah.
Like you can train all you want for karate. You are not going to know whether you know those moves unless someone attacks you unexpectedly. Like, will your body remember all of these things? And once it's just, it's when you're talking about abuse, it's such a gray area because everybody thinks they know how you should respond.
Absolutely.
They think like, well, why didn't you say this? And why didn't you say that? And it's that question that just drives me crazy. And I go, why are you obsessed with that question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Why does that question even matter? And don't get me wrong. Listen, there are stories that I've heard from women and you think, and I think sometimes it's just like, wow, what would make her stay? Not like a judging way, but what makes a person stay? And I always try to answer that. I do. I say, because I was afraid. What makes it, so
you're I had that highlighted next.
Right.
In chapter 6, you said, I stayed because of fear, embarrassment, judgment. I could have saved him. I loved him. I made excuses for him. Absolutely, all of the things. So we only have a little bit left, and I know that you have to go. So I want to make sure we get to the bulk of it. So tell me about the day that he almost killed you.
So it was summertime, hanging out with my friends. I hadn't seen him and I saw him walking towards me. And I was on his block and I wasn't with him that day, but I saw him and he was holding hands with another girl. And my homegirls were with me and they were ready to just pop off and, you know, fight. And I'm like, you're like, nope. I'm like, girl, I got this. Faking the funk because number one, no one knew that I was going through this. Absolutely. Number two, I didn't want to be exposed. Number three, I didn't know if he would attack me in front of them if I tried to shout him out. So they left and we went to his apartment and he let the girl's hand go. And of course, as a true manipulator, he turned it on me.
Of course.
And I had some shorts on and he was like, oh, you just want guys to look at you. So it went from like him, I had evidence that you were just with someone else and now you're blaming me, which is typical, right? Of a manipulator. And when we went to the apartment, it was a moment that I really thought, this is it.
Yeah.
I saw myself taking a last breath. I saw myself of like being all over the floor, and that's how like the cops would find me. So when I tell people that I should not be here, it is so true. Because when you look at death in the face, it does something to you. And that's what I felt like I was looking at that day. I thought, wow, I'm 18 and this is it. I'm not going to live any of my dreams. And I ran out and it was like dawn already. And I think we were just fighting for hours. And then he just like switched and he started like wiping my blood. And he was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I love you and I don't know why I do this. And I just was like, dude, just end it.
Yeah.
You know, just end it because I'm done. Like I'm physically, emotionally a zombie. I have nothing else. And then did I leave? No. But it was at those moments where I kept saying to myself, either I leave or this is not going to end well. And that was that moment. That was that moment where I just was like, I have to get out of this. Don't know how, don't know when, but I know I do.
Wow. So you stayed, right? And then you finally found the courage to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, like after some time. And I want to get to like the depth of the book because I want to talk about everything and I know your time's running out. So a lot like my story, similar. I wasn't with him. And then same thing as you. I was sitting at work. Well, you were different. You were somewhere else. But I was sitting at work and I felt sick. And I was like, am I pregnant? And I had already left him. I kept my daughter. My daughter's 14 now. And she's a beautiful kid. But you made the decision to have an abortion. You talk about it openly in the book. How did that experience after you called him and he told you, I don't care what you do with it. Like, how did that forge like even stronger for you to say, oh yeah, like I'm done. Like, do you still think about that moment and regret the abortion, or it was just something that you knew I had to do and you had to move on from it? And that was kind of like your way of moving on from it.
Well, just to bring the story back a little, it wasn't until I had my first bout of suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
And I thought, yeah, this is how it's going to happen. I'm just going to call the lights out on myself. And that really was a catapult to me finally breaking it off. So I left him, broke up with him, whatever. I don't remember the time span, but I ended up going back with him. We slept together. And in between that's when I became pregnant. And I thought, my goodness, like out of all things, you know, and out of all things, really all the years and, you know, in that moment, and then having to make that decision when I just knew for me at that moment, it was I couldn't see myself having his child. And once he treated me the way he did, I was like, okay, I'm making the right decision for me at that time. and it was painful. It was, to me, worse than the abuse.
Yeah.
And I think that's what most women don't talk about,
Mhm.
because all we want to focus is on, this is my choice, right? It's my choice. But we don't talk about the mental, spiritual pain that you experience after.
Yeah.
And hey, some women have done it and just been able to live their lives and be fine. But that was not the case for me.
Mhm.
So writing that last chapter took me 21 years to finally share with the world.
Wow.
I could not have written this book had I not fully embraced that piece of my life.
Yeah.
And so, once again, it's so political, that topic, but I was a teenager. I was a young girl, terrified, and I made a decision that really destroyed me. It was so bad that I didn't want to have children because of that. I didn't want to allow myself to even think that I could become a mother because of what I did. So that's how intense it was for me. And listen, for some women it's not, and that's fine. But for me, it wasn't. And I know that there's so many women, because they've reached out to me, that they're in their 60s, 70s, and they had it, and they still can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it tells you like, this is deeper. This is deeper than just a choice. I never felt empowered by it. I was never, I just was like, man, I have to do this. And I did it by myself, which was, it was just sad. It was horrible. It's like the worst thing in the world. So that's where that piece comes from.
Wow. Everything that you've said today is just inspiring. Not many people, especially Latinos, can go and put it out there, because Amanda, we say this all the time on the show, lo que pasa en la casa se queda en la casa. Our parents always told us, whatever happens, you keep it home. But you literally took this book, Embracing Me, and you put everything out there. So people who are watching, I will say it over and over again, go buy this book. You will not regret it. Whether you have dealt with abuse or not, something in this book will resonate with you. It touched me 110%. Before we close out or anything, I just want to talk about how when you met Jose, how amazing that transformation was. We've already talked about how you were a little boisterous with him and, you were like, I'm doing this. But I think Ralph just put up a question asking if your acting helped you cope with these issues. I know that after this, you decided to be with your husband. And in the book, you say how, you were on ER, and then you had to worry about doing Freedom Writers, and, your husband was home, you were somewhere else. He was so supportive of you through this. And you were like, I have dreams and, I'm doing them. This is what I'm doing, type of thing.
Correct.
How did acting and Jose and everything just help you forge through everything that you've dealt with? Was acting helpful for you?
Oh, absolutely. It was my way out. It was a gift from God, because I didn't grow up wanting to be an actor. As I wrote in the book, I never even saw myself as that. Although I would always say, like, I knew I was going to be successful, and I knew I wanted to be someone great in life. Didn't know in what capacity. And I felt like acting found me, because I told, when you read it, I went into chemistry class. I walked out and I was like, oh, hell no, I don't do chemistry. I don't do science. I love words. And so, yes, I'll be an actor. But I know without a doubt that my husband was a gift from God. I know that he was meant to be in my life. There is no April without my husband. He's been with me since the beginning, the genesis of who I've become. And having him just always say yes, always, every time I come up with a crazy dream, yes, let's do this. And that was a saving grace. Yeah. That really was a saving grace. That and also later on my faith. I mean, I've always feel like I've had God in my life, but it wasn't until like I made a conscious decision to accept him. And then, you know, he's just been blowing my mind ever since. And I can't ever share my story without talking about God. It's just impossible. And it was that forgiveness after, you know, having the abortion that literally set me free. It set me free. But it was still so hard to talk about until 21 years later.
Absolutely.
So we have just two more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure,
One is mine and one is from the producer. My question is twofold really quickly. What's one thing that surprised you while writing the book, and one thing that surprised you now after it's being published and you doing interviews and things like that?
One thing that surprised me writing it, wow. I don't know if it's surprise. I think of what I discovered, the level of perseverance, that it takes to have an idea, to commit to it during one of the worst times in the world, with everything going against, like writing a book in one of the worst times of the world, and saying, I know that what I have to say really needs to be told. So it was the perseverance and really the belief that I can do this. So my husband, he shot the cover of the book, and it's been a family affair, having my publisher, Roy Juarez Jr., his support, just my friends, but that perseverance, because this book was written out of a lot of tears.
Yes.
Many moments where I thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Right? Why am I doing this? So it wasn't more of a surprise, but more of a discovery of how, like, when you want to do something, no matter what is happening, you will find a way if you really want it to happen. So what was your second question?
So my second question is, so let's go back to the day you had the altar call. And it kind of lines up with what you just said, actually. Do you think that God's voice and how you felt in that instant change, how your pain affected you after that?
Oh, of course. I mean, God has always been with me. He's called me since I was a kid. It wasn't until I answered that call, but it was in that moment where, when you hear the voice of God tell you that he forgives you, but you need to forgive yourself. Like, he didn't need to tell me that. You know what I'm saying? I call him G Money. G Money didn't need to say that. You know, my God, he didn't have to say that, but it was sort of, how many times are we able to forgive everyone else? But when it comes to ourselves,
oh yeah, yes,
and as women, we suffer silently.
Yes.
For not forgiving ourselves, whether, you know, we're single moms and we feel like we're not living up to what our kids need us to be, or we're women who haven't had babies yet and everybody's making us feel bad, but we don't feel bad, but like we don't forgive ourselves, like all of these things that we experience as women. So forgiving myself, and that's why I put it out there that this book is really about forgiveness, whether it's forgiveness for someone who's hurt you or forgiveness for yourself, as you see this book, and that's important, especially during these times, right? We're going through so many things, and yet the level of forgiveness and empathy that, unfortunately, you know, the woman who didn't show me empathy, when I had the abortion, and this woman came, she gave me a pamphlet and she told me that I was going to hell. She lost a moment to show the grace. She lost a moment to tell me it's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, wow, what would my life had been like had she said those things? Would I have suffered in silence for over, you know, X amount of years? I don't know.
Well, I will tell you that in the time we've been on this call, I bought your book on Amazon. So everybody go ahead and buy it. Because I am totally intrigued to know more. I feel like it's like I just got the trailer of your book and I want more. And I know Chrissy's gonna say her goodbye, but I really wanted to just say that your entire story today is gonna reach a million of our viewers, and we will continue to talk about you even after this. And we really appreciate you coming, and I hope that your success continues and that you continue to be blessed and that your blessing comes and hits all of us in one way or the other, because I think that we can really empower each other. And Chrissy is doing it this way, and you're doing it through your skill of being an actress and your voice and advocating. And I think that we have a duty as women of empowering characters to make sure that the people out there know that they also can have a voice, or have people like that lady, that opportunity that lady didn't have with you, have that opportunity to be that for someone.
Yes.
And I want to share really quickly, you know, I know we have to go, but I wanted to share something because of what you just said right now. About 2 years ago, I was working for this, I was going to this organization where they help women who've either are on their way to have an abortion, or they've had one and now they need support. And they're faith driven, which I think is amazing. They're like, listen, whether you've had one, we love you. Whether you are going, we just want to support you. And so there was this girl there who I just happened to be at that same place. She had, I believe, 2 abortions already. She found out that she was pregnant with twins. She was considering having another abortion. And they said, April, would you mind going and talking to her? And I was like, oh, sure, great. And I just went in the room and I spoke to her like, if I'm speaking to you, I'm like, hey, girl, talk to me. Like, what we doing? You know? And she's looking at me like, who the hell is this girl? And I told her my story. And she says, you know, I had 2 of them and I'm considering. And I really just showed her all the empathy, all the grace, everything that I desired. And it always gets me emotional when I share this because she didn't go through with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
She had her babies. And I just told her, I said, how amazing is it that you are pregnant for the 3rd time? Number one, so many women can't have children. So many women struggle just to, you know, have a baby. And the fact that you're not only blessed once, but you're blessed twice. And she went through and she had the baby, the babies. And those stories keep me moving forward. And the fact that I was placed there. And so whomever is listening tonight, your life is worth it. Your life is worth working. Your life is worth just saying, I'm going to do the work, even when nobody believes in me, whether I feel like I'm drowning in my pain. But if you're willing to just face yourself and do the work, the other side is so much better. Right, that other side. And it's I share that story of that girl because it was God ordained that I happened to be there. And now she has 2 amazing babies.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, God, you know, that was a cool moment. That was you know, all God. I was just myself. And I think, you know, because I think when people talk about they see a celebrity and they're talking about their faith, is like, you can't be both. And I'm like, listen, honey. I love red lipstick. I pop my mouth, you know, and I love me some God because he's real for me, and whatever that is for anyone else. But just know, like, it's worth it. It's worth doing the work.
Absolutely.
He put you to work that day. He put you to work.
Girl, I was working hard. I was just like, you know, I'm trying to like give her everything. I'm making her laugh because, you know, because I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like to be in that position and to not have anyone embrace you. And that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to embrace her. I gave her a big hug and I said, whatever you do, like you have the ability to start over. And I think that's what we always need. So many of us need a second chance.
Yes, absolutely.
So many of us need a second chance today. And so that's what I want people to walk away with. A second chance is there. You just have to be willing to take it.
Absolutely. April, thank you so, so much for being
This
here,
was
especially on
amazing.
your daughter's birthday, Bendito. Tell her that we say happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday
Absolutely.
to her.
Yes,
We
thank
hope that the
you.
rest of the evening is amazing. I know that you have such people who are watching, and even those who will
Yes.
continue to watch after. Our views always go up after. We get so many people who
Mm-hmm.
watch after, and people always give us such amazing feedback. So everyone that's watching, remember, please go Amazon and buy this book. Your book was phenomenal, and let me tell you that it touched me in so many ways personally, because it felt like, damn, yes, she got it. Like everything that you said in
Mm,
this book kind of made me feel better, you know, because
wow.
doing the work that I do is not always gratifying. There's so
Wow.
many people who think that what I do is wrong. They think
Yeah.
that talking about domestic violence is something that I should shush my mouth about. And, you know, I'm ruining my own child and just different things. I've gotten so many negativity just spewed at me. And a lot of times it's disheartened me to a point where just for a moment, not for long, I'm like, should I even do this anymore? And reading your book just definitely was like, I am not alone. This was her story, which is a lot like mine. And I just thank you so much for writing the book. Like, honestly, writing the book and giving me something so powerful that, you know, my daughter loves books. That's all she does is read. So I said, okay, homegirl, I'm giving it to you next.
Oh, I
She's gonna
love
be
it.
she's gonna be 14 and all she does is read books. But it was very empowering. You were such an amazing guest. I had so much fun with
Yes.
you. I know that you have to go, but before you go, we always give everybody a closing statement. You kind of just made it. So
Great.
instead of giving your closing statement, because you pretty much just do that, please, please, please tell everyone where they can find you on social media, how they can get your book, all of the above, because I want everyone to support you.
Absolutely. The book Embracing Me is available on Amazon.com. And if you would like to stay connected to me and follow me on my journey, and if you've been impacted by this conversation, please follow me on Instagram at April L. Hernandez. April L. Hernandez. And if you are on LinkedIn, it is April Hernandez Castillo. And I hope to hear from all of you. Mwah.
Thank you so much, April. I know that you have to go. We're going to continue and highlight the rest of our women for Women's History Month. But again, thank you so much. Un montón. Abrazos y besos. And I wish you
Thank
the
you.
best in everything that you do.
Thank you so much.
He had to do it. He had to do it.
Bye-bye, April. Have a good evening.
Bye, ladies.
Bye bye.
Oh my God, that was
great.
awesome. She's amazing. I don't know how much fun I had, how much fun you had, but I had a great time.
I had a great time. I loved her energy. I loved how like transparent she was. Like there
Yeah.
wasn't really no holding back, you know. That's why I'm like, she's talking. I was like, I need this book. I need to know what happened next and
That
how
book
she
was
did that.
amazing.
So
It
I
was
ordered mine
amazing.
already. So it's in the mail.
Good stuff. So we want to do what we've been doing all month, which is highlighting all of those folks for Women's History Month. So if you guys were watching previously and you remember, we highlighted Miss Amanda. We showed a few clips of Amanda. So, you know, while we're here, we say hooray. And go ahead, Ray, you can throw up that wepa for Miss Amanda this evening, because you were
now he wasn't. I
highlighted. There
wasn't
you go.
saying it.
Woo, woo, woo. We celebrated you for being a phenomenal Latina. So I'm glad that you're here.
Thank
We
you.
said that you were amazing. We showed clips of your work. And listen, she told you how to reach her. If you need help, if she can help you, she will definitely help you find that. So we're going to put up just all of the photos of the ladies who we have highlighted since we've been on our last show for Women's History Month. We have Gigi, who I believe is watching us. Jermaine, she is beautiful, another amazing survivor. We highlighted her this week. She is awesome, empowering. My girl, find her on Instagram. She is phenomenal. We also highlighted Miss Sandra Gonzalez, who just finished defending her dissertation. So we're going to talk to her, Dr.
Woohoo!
Gonzalez, another Latina who is paving ways in education right now. Marilyn Del Valle Santiago, my girl, she is watching right now too. She is another pivotal member of Love Should Not Hurt, an amazing woman and another beautiful survivor. Jeanette Diaz, whoop, whoop, who just became the chief. I don't want to say it wrong. It's the chief? Oh, I'm going to say it wrong, and I don't want to say it wrong. She's at Congreso, people, and she just got promoted, and she's a Latina doing powerful things, and she worked with the Latina Domestic Violence Department for years, as well as the Victim Services Program. She just got promoted, and I want to say what she got promoted to, but I don't want to ruin it, and they say, you said that wrong. So just know that she's killing it and that she's awesome. I see somebody wrote a Chief Experience Officer. Thank you, Doris. She was promoted to the Chief Experience Officer at Congreso. Thank you so much, Jeanette Diaz. Alma Arce Rios, another Latina doing amazing things, and she's doing things that not any of us would probably do, right? So I give it to her. She runs a family-owned funeral home. She is a funeral director, and she has the most caring and loving heart. She helped my family through some of the most terrible times, but she did it with such ease and grace, and she made my grandmother look so beautiful. And she does this on a daily basis, and she's phenomenal. So look for Guckin Funeral Home because Alma is amazing. Last but not least, Carmen Gonzalez, who's the sister of Sandra Gonzalez. Sandra's doing big things, but so is Carmen. On March 30th, she has the release of her first book of poetry. Carmen Gonzalez is doing big things. Let's give it up for her too. Kudos to you, Carmen. It's been an amazing show. It's been a phenomenal hour. Amanda, I had fun with you being my host and not my guest.
I like this. Bring me back as a co-host.
Comfortable. Thank you, everyone, for watching. It was an amazing night. Go out there once again, buy this book, Embracing Me by April Hernandez Castillo. Find her on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you can find her. Check out Freedom Writers. It is a phenomenal movie. Not just because she was on the show. It is a great, great movie. Go out, watch it, and find it. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.